So welcome everyone. This is Linnea and Linnea Broker, and of course I am with Washington Campus Compact. I am the network manager and oversee the Washington Campus Compact VISTA program. We are Denise Blake is with me, and we are going to be doing kind of an overview of the VISTA recruitment process. First, I'd like to start off with saying congratulations in being a part of the WACC VISTA program for 2017-18. It's really exciting. We are very excited. Though we still have, of course, our 16-17 team on board, but we also start getting geared up for the next year. So this coming year, we actually anticipate working with 11 campuses in our Washington Campus Compact network. So that's across the state of Washington, of course. So 11 campuses, 17 different sites, 16 VISTA members, and one VISTA leader. So we're going to have a big team next year, and so it's really important that we get started sort of early on, be proactive with our recruitment. Things come up and along and move very quickly. So we're taking this opportunity to just really introduce you to how this happens, why we do it the way that we do, and so our agenda today is going to be looking at sort of what do VISTA applicants usually, what do they look like? What does the profile of VISTA applicants look like? And what can you expect your applicants, therefore, to look like? What does the national recruitment look like, which is undertaken by Washington Campus Compact? What's our role and what are our responsibilities as far as national recruitment goes? And then what does local recruitment look like? So we do kind of a two-pronged system whereby we do the same thing basically that you do, except that we have a little bit broader reach because we have the national CNCS, Corporation for National and Community Service network, as well as the Washington Campus Compact network to use for outreach. And then lastly, we're really going to share some resources that we hope will be helpful to you as you start your recruitment process. And of course, Denise and I are available to take any questions. So kind of before we even begin, I think that we're interested, as you are, really in securing the best candidates. And as I've been in this will be my 7th year of recruitment, I've learned a few things. And one of those is definitely start early. So that's what we're doing. We really already have the positions. Most of them were already put into the system right after, I think, the selection. We did the selection on Monday, April 24th. We notified all of you, and we had things ready to go active already on that day. So things are live. So we know that right when we select sites, we have to be rolling right into that recruitment, as we hope you are doing as well. So start early, be really proactive. Applicants tend to be fluid. They apply for many different reasons. They apply oftentimes across the board, especially highly qualified candidates will kind of throw the net out. And so if you kind of don't get a hook in right away, they often swim off to other seas. It's a little nautical metaphor there. Go deep. Go deep, and with that I mean you when you start early and you start early and you're proactive, you have that opportunity. You have that opportunity to learn as much as you possibly can about your applicants. And with that, then I would add really go gut. Gut feelings also mean a lot because it's not just a business of numbers and targets, it's also a business about personal relationships. So you will be working closely with this person for an entire year. So if kind of yellow flags get raised for you anywhere along the process, dig deep and go with your gut. Because I can definitely guarantee that 90% of potential problems that come up in the year could have been avoided or prevented had due diligence really been done at the recruitment phase. So that's my sort of leave you with those tips, and then I'd like to hand it over to Denise, who is really the expert this year, and as she was last. I'm so privileged to have her on board for a second round of recruitment. So she's going to be your go-to person during this process, and so I'm going to hand it over to her to talk a little bit more about details. And we'll be sharing. I'll be jumping in at various places too.
So this will be my second year doing recruitment for the VISTA team. I came on board last February and kind of got started with recruitment right away. And this year I definitely do have more experience, a little bit more familiarity with how it works and just kind of some of the patterns as well, as Linnea was speaking to, just being able to recognize when something's come up that may be potentially problematic down the line, when you find a really highly qualified candidate and how to be able to engage and retain them, and those type of things too. And I can say just so far we've been open for about 2 weeks now, or a week and a half, with most of the listings for the sites for August, and we've already had a number of candidates come in, and so I've been talking to them one by one kind of as they come in. And so it's been been nice to get kind of started on that and then be able to do just the one-on-ones and then send those on to the host sites and kind of work with that recruitment. So first I wanted to show off these demographics. They are national. So I pulled these from one of the VISTA campus webinars for supervisors that's called the Art and Science of Recruitment. It's one of the recent ones, and I have a link to it in one of the later slides as well. And so this is what they gathered for, was kind of preliminary data really. They gathered from the last application period from 2016. And so they really found, and I thought these numbers are really interesting just because they are fairly reflective of the demographics that we have on our team as well. There are some key kind of differences as well, but this I thought just had a really nice overview of the type of candidates that apply to VISTA jobs, and typically those are the ones who do go for the whole year and are able to serve for a whole year. And so it kind of just usually gives supervisors and also VISTA members as well how they fit into the demographic for AmeriCorps VISTA in particular. So just the VISTA program underneath that big AmeriCorps umbrella. So yeah, you can see that many of the applicants identify as women, and that is something that we've also kind of found with WACC as well. And the average age is in about the mid to late 20s is what they've found. And also with our team, because we're working closely with college campuses, we found that typically we do get a lot of graduates, new graduates or graduates who are just a couple years out of college. So oftentimes maybe they are recruited through the program that they're now serving in as a VISTA. And so that is kind of a nice progression of their career as well. And they're able to stay on campus and work and get some more experience. And sometimes they're hired on as supervisors. So they kind of just stay very internal and local, which works out really well. Let's see. So I guess, compared to this number of over 22,000 people that applied to all these different listings across the U.S., we had, for our last year, we had about 10 positions open, some in August and some in the fall and winter as well. We had about 161 applications that came in. So those were just ones that came straight through the My AmeriCorps portal. And those were ones that I screened most of the ones that came through. Sometimes people will apply and then withdraw right away if it's not the position they meant to apply for. But for the most part, I do read through all the applications and screen them and see which ones would be are complete, that have all the information, and ones that I think will be a good fit for the position they're applying for, and that I'd like to be able to speak to them a little further about their application. So and also one thing I think that is interesting as well is that we've typically had about kind of a 50-50 split between candidates that are from Washington State or are currently living in Washington State, and ones that come from out of state. And so those those out-of-state applicants are often drawn to some of the more urban areas like Seattle, just because they're more familiar with it. And also the way that the AmeriCorps system works is that you can really only tag the positions with major metropolitan areas. So if people are searching for Seattle, they are also going to get applications pulled, or listings that are in Pullman or Spokane, or those kind of things too. So it's a little bit confusing. That's just sort of a limitation of the My AmeriCorps website. But then we do clarify, and I clarify that, making sure that they know where they want to go, and that Spokane is on the other side of the state. It's not Seattle. So just making sure that they are aware if they're coming from out of state, because relocation can be kind of tricky. Okay, and this was also from the AmeriCorps or the recruitment webinar, and I thought this was really interesting as well, is that they listed the top 10 colleges that are producing VISTA applicants, and yeah, the University of Washington is the #1 college that produces VISTA applicants, and then down at number 9 we've got Western. So these are like two big public universities. And I think the fact that we can kind of use those and be able to tap into these major universities, Washington State University as well, and all the ones that are located in these major areas, we're able to, I think all the team members that are part of WACC are able to tap into that network and be able to talk to faculty and staff, and if you're part of regional or professional affiliations or organizations, being able to tap into that network for candidates, I think that's going to be really helpful for local recruitment and making sure that we have very quality candidates that are coming through. And definitely, I've noticed that with the past year too, is that we did get a lot of candidates who came from the University of Washington. That seemed like that was a pretty big kind of similarity between a lot of candidates that were from Washington.
Mm-hmm.
So I think
another thing I was just going to mention, another thing that I find interesting is if you look back at those top producing institutions, a lot of folks from there will, like University of Phoenix or Michigan, Minnesota, Ohio, we get a lot of applicants from those places as well.
Mm-hmm.
So because that information is probably out there on their campus, they're looking at it and they're going, oh, whoa, I have an opportunity to go to Washington State. So we do get a lot of applicants, and as I'm sure that it goes the other way as well, which I think is kind of interesting. But cool to, I think, see that 2 campuses or institutions here in our own state produce the most VISTA applicants. That's great for all of us recruiting.
Absolutely. And I think University of Washington too, they also produce a lot of Peace Corps candidates as well, and volunteers. So I think places that have a really strong sense of service and kind of embedding that into their students, that's really helpful for our recruitment purposes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm going to turn this back over to Linnea, who's going to kind of go over just that broad overview of how their WACC recruitment process goes.
Yes, I'm just going to talk a little bit about the way that we do the recruitment. It's kind of a 2-pronged or parallel system in which Washington Campus Compact and you as the host site work in tandem really to select the best candidates for the project. One of the reasons that we really do that is because as a sponsoring agency or intermediary, if you will, we have a couple extra layers. A couple other extra layers within the whole position that the applicants need to kind of get acquainted with. So oftentimes in the VISTA program, it's just an individual placement. In other words, say, for example, Habitat for Humanity applies for one VISTA member. So it's one agency applying for one VISTA member, and they have a direct relationship with the state office. As an intermediary, we have multi-sites, and in our case, the sites are across the state of Washington. Then we work with our institutions, who also then often are partnering with their community partner, and sometimes the VISTA member is even placed on or in a community partner office. So there's a lot for a VISTA member to learn. So one of the things is that they're a part of this larger organization, which is the Corporation for National Community Service, which is a federal anti-poverty agency. And so they, in the beginning, when they start their service, they are really oriented around that anti-poverty mission. And they are paid directly from the federal agency in a direct deposit way, and so they really do have. I mean, that's where their living allowance is coming from. So they really have a direct link, if you will, to the umbilical cord, really, to their living allowance, so to that federal agency. Then they also are part of the greater Washington Campus Compact program, whose mission is really to engage students in civically through education and service learning. So they also have to sort of learn that piece of it. Who is Washington Campus Compact? And they are reporting to Washington Campus Compact with their monthly reports. There's the leader that comes out of the Washington Campus Compact program. We're really focused on education, and then we have in the WACC VISTA program, which is a blend then of anti-poverty programming and education, with one other focus area, which is food security, which is what Brian's project is focused on. So there's a lot of learning there, big learning curves. Who is the corporation? Who is Washington Campus Compact? What institution am I at? What community partners am I working with in this specific focus area? So we do both, like I say, national and local recruiting, and with our sort of listserv and our networks that are connected to both our Campus Compact network, as well as our institutional networks, as well as the corporation, we have a really broad reach. So we can target or outreach broadly and nationally. But at the same time, we know that with these multiple learning curves and these multiple pieces that members have to become really familiar with to be successful at the job, it's also really helpful if they don't come completely unprepared. So local recruitment is really important because if an applicant has for one graduated from the institution, they at least know the institution. They know the culture. They feel that campus culture. They've never been behind the scenes, which might be rather shocking. They maybe only have been there as a student, but they kind of get where the campus is and where the culture is and how it fits into the greater community. They've also been a part of that community for some time, so it's another piece that they don't necessarily have to learn about. So we really encourage our host sites to do local recruitment as well. So both of us do both the national recruitment and local recruitment, kind of start at the same place with that outreach. You may be using things like boards or Facebook pages connected to your community engagement office, different types of listservs, everything from maybe Craigslist to electronic boards in the school. tabling, whatever means that you have. Well, we will be doing the national recruitment. So we are posting those, and Denise will get more into the details. We're posting the positions on the AmeriCorps.gov website. So we're both doing outreach. We both gain or get applications. They may look a little different. When we get an application, they literally are going through the system, the AmeriCorps system, so the applications all look the same. And Denise then vets those and organizes those for each campus, whereas when it's a local recruitment, that application may be a cover letter with a resume. So it may look a little different. They'll eventually go through the same processing, but they both are different types, really, of applications. Then we come to the screening here. If it comes through the national website, the pre-screening will be done here. If it comes through a local recruitment, you will likely be doing a pre-screening. Somebody may just walk into your office and ask you questions, and then it'll move on to us. Then after the screening, there will be a host site interview, and this would be actually happen whether they were national or local. And then finally, the selection process. And that would happen both at your end, at our end, and then it also happens actually at the state level. So you would do the final selection. We approve the selection, and then the state office actually has to also approve that selection. That's why being proactive and doing some of that upfront work right away makes it a lot easier to get that work through all the channels to actually get that person on board. So as you can see at the bottom of this slide, the deadline is Friday, June 16th, which is 5 weeks away. So we actually have to have the application in the system being processed by that date. So as you can see already, it goes really quickly. It goes really fast. It starts happening. The wheels. Once the wheels start turning, they turn really quickly. So I do want to stress that the reason that we have this deadline in June is because it takes approximately 9 weeks for the entire process. So if we're looking at folks starting at the end of August, you just have to count back. They actually have to be resettled if they're moving from a distance. They have to go through a national orientation. They have to pass background checks, pass reference. Have reference clearance. All those pieces have to happen. So it's not an arbitrary date that we choose because we want to get the work done so we can go on vacation. There's actually a good reason for it. And as we go through the next couple of slides, we'll also talk a little bit about where pitfalls are. And so there's also a good reason for having that much lead time because things can happen along the way. So with that, I'll pass it back to Denise, and she'll talk to us about the national recruitment, what that looks like, details.
Sure. So, and I mean, for this one, for national recruitment, I can say that currently as a VISTA leader, and also I served as a VISTA member for a year in Montana before coming out to Bellingham. I've been through the AmeriCorps portal twice. I found both positions through the AmeriCorps portal rather than through local recruitment. So, I am very familiar with kind of the other end of the system as well, and using the application, uploading all the different necessary resources, and then sending those out to the listings that I'm applying for. So I definitely have kind of both sides of the picture now. With my AmeriCorps portal, that is sort of just a database of all the different positions that are open for AmeriCorps. And that's not just VISTA, but also NCCC, state and national, and then also any leader positions as well. So it has pretty much just thousands of listings, basically. And you can filter those down. So you can filter for program type, like VISTA. You can filter for when you want to start, for location and also just position as well, and you can also type in keywords. So I think what's good to know about that is that people will find these positions through many different ways, and it's they're either looking for a certain position, like they really want to do get experience doing community assessments. So they'll type that in, and that's one of the things that pops up as a skill that's required for a position. Or they're looking to relocate to a specific place, or they're really looking for a certain organization. So you have YMCA locations all around the country. They can filter for ones that are in the different states with different programs, and then go from there. So that being said, the application through the AmeriCorps portal is very general. It's not one that's specifically going to be for each position. So when you create an application through the My AmeriCorps portal, what that's really asking for is there are 2 short essay questions. One's asking for why you want to do AmeriCorps, what's your motivation for applying for AmeriCorps, and that's, again, any AmeriCorps position. And they also are asking for what's your motivation, or what's your your reason for doing community service. Tell us about your community service experience and why that's leading you to applying for AmeriCorps positions. So when you receive applications from applicants, ones that I usually forward on, they do have those 2 short essay questions that people fill out. In addition to that, there's just the standard listing of work experience and of community service experience as well, and education. And there's also a background check section. And in addition to that, they do have to submit 2 recommendation forms. And the way that works is they will send that out to the people who are going to be their references, and those people will fill out a special little recommendation form that goes back through the portal, and that gets attached to their application. So that is one where they don't need to have those in place before they submit their application. They could come a little bit later on in the process. So sometimes people will submit applications that haven't been completed with references yet. So that's one thing where we do, if campuses want to double check with references and give them a call to speak in person, sometimes that's a good idea, just because sometimes the references that are submitted are ones that are maybe more personal than they are professional. So it's kind of good to have both. And that's something that also the state office likes to see that as well. They like to see strong professional references, either from previous supervisors, from volunteer coworkers or supervisors, or also just kind of anyone else who's more familiar with the work style of the applicant. And the other thing with the portal is that you can submit, or you can create 2 to 3 applications and submit up to 10 listings per application. So in theory, an applicant could have about 30 listings that they've submitted to, kind of just floating out there, and then they're going to wait to hear back and see who's going to respond first, who they're going to get interviews with. So at any one point, people could be interviewing and talking with several, like many sites. So that is one thing, again, where it's kind of good to be proactive, good to be definitely reaching out to those candidates that are very well qualified, because oftentimes they will be talking with other sites as well. And that's something that I ask during my screening with folks is just, are you also applying to other sites in the area? Who else are you kind of applying with? Just, for my information, and also just, if I know that they are applying to, if they're applying to, say, Seattle Central College, and they're also applying to United Way positions in Seattle, definitely very good for if they're a great candidate, that we want to make sure that we can engage them and retain them as quickly as possible. And so with all these listings as well, my contact information is attached on the listing itself, and so I'm the one who receives the notifications from the system as well. So I'm kind of that first point of contact usually for these applications when they come in. And then at that point it goes on to the pre-screening interview that I do, and then from there we kind of move on in the process, moving out to the host site. So for the pre-screening interview, what I usually look for first as I'm reviewing applications is really kind of screening for for completion, making sure that the essay questions are filled out. They do have, work experience, that they have phone numbers for the supervisors, maybe some description of their duties, and just making sure that there's been some thought and some thoroughness, and they can articulate what experience they have and what their motivation is for doing AmeriCorps, just because it is a unique position compared to applying just for other jobs. So I just want to get a little bit more information about what their motivation is, what their history is. In addition to that, looking for their experience, looking for skills that they have, and transferable skills as well, making sure that possibly if they don't have exactly, the same, if their experience doesn't exactly align with the position that they're applying for, could they still have transferable skills that they could use at this position as well? So really kind of, seeing what potential is there. And definitely as I'm screening, I'm looking for those flags as well. Is one of their references outstanding, but another one is, maybe average or kind of has some negative qualities in it? That's something where you'd want to keep an eye on that, just to, see if maybe there's another person we can contact as well, just to get another reference on hand. Or, even like let's say, someone has 2 outstanding references, but their application itself maybe is, a little bit on the thin side. The essay questions are very short, so they don't have a lot of experience. That is something where, I just I like to give people the benefit of the doubt. Kind of when I'm looking at these candidates, I like to err on the side of good faith. And if there's one part that seems like it's very, very strong and another part is weak, I usually decide I'm going to talk to them too, just because these applications are, very general. They don't really give a great, very thorough overview necessarily of the candidate. Maybe not related to what we're looking for with Washington Campus Compact and with the host sites as well. So speaking to the candidate, you definitely do get a very good sense of what they would be like as a VISTA member as well. So I think that's pretty key, and that's definitely where I'd like to go into that process and be able to speak to them and go through all the screening questions and make sure that this is something that they want to do, that they understand what the responsibilities are for VISTA, what the commitment is, and also how they're going to figure into Washington Campus Compact, working within higher education as well, within our 2 focus areas. So as you can see on the screen, when I do the pre-screening interview, I do have a little format that I follow. So usually talking with the candidates, just over the overview of AmeriCorps VISTA and of Washington Campus Compact and how our 2 missions intersect with the VISTA program. And then I speak pretty generally to the project's history that they're applying for. I know about the project from the project proposals, from the position descriptions and the VISTA assignment descriptions that have been submitted, and also, with some supervisors, I've sent out, or especially with new supervisors, I've sent out a little questionnaire. Just, are there specific skills you're looking for? Are there, other specific requirements that you'd like me to screen for? And so I do have a sense of those as well. So I can speak very, very generally and broadly to the position, especially talking about if it's a first-year position or if it's going to be the 3rd year. And this is really one where it's going to be just more institutionalization of the program. Just so that the candidate gets a little bit of sense of that. But day-to-day stuff, I usually tell them hold on to those questions for the site supervisor, because they can speak more to what the day-to-day work and what the office culture is like and how that's going to go. But yeah, so some of the questions that I ask folks that kind of help get a good sense of background and experience. One, talking about commitment, is how are you prepared, or what preparations are you going to be making to be able to live for a year on a modest living allowance? VISTAs are able to hold second jobs as well, but there's some limitations. Just if they're working full time during the day, that doesn't necessarily leave a lot of time to be able to hold another job. So if they're dependent on $900 a month or $850 a month to pay for rent and expenses and food, then yeah, please tell me about what your plans are to be able to do that, because that's one of the that definitely is a pitfall for some people, and that's why they may back out after accepting the position. That's something we've experienced in the past, is people saying, actually, I don't I don't think I just have the resources or the capability right now to be able to do this for a year and get this kind of compensation. So definitely that's something we want to screen for. Just make sure there's a plan, especially also if they're going to be relocating. Also asking them, have you researched what the cost of living is in Seattle or in Everett? And making sure that they kind of know what housing is going to be like. If they know anyone in the area, do they have family who'd be able to help support them if they needed to? Those kind of things are pretty key just for determining if they're going to be able to stick with the program for a full year. And then other ones, we look at are just tell me more about your background, how you faced challenges in the workplace or in internships or even in school groups sometimes, if they don't have a lot of work experience. Just tell me about how you dealt with a challenge and how you remained motivated during that time, because that's a situation you're going to face during your VISTA year, as in really any workplace as well. So if they can articulate some of that and they can walk me through the process, that's wonderful to hear. And then also looking just at diversity and working with different communities and people of different backgrounds. That's a new question that we've added this year to the screening interview, just to make sure that we are looking for candidates who definitely can articulate what it's like to be challenged while working in a community that's different maybe from their own, or coming into a community which they don't have a background, or they're relocating. So it's intentionally vague, or broad rather, just to get a good sense of what the different experiences are like from our candidates. And then at the end, we just kind of go over what the benefits are of service, such as like the education award, the non-competitive eligibility for government jobs, what the prohibited activities are, so no political advocacy or while being on duty as a VISTA, and so on. And then we go into any questions they have. And typically their questions kind of look like more about the site and what the day-to-day work looks like from them. And then afterwards, what I do for next steps is I tell them, where we are in the recruitment process, hoping to have selections by mid-June, and then we'll be sending on a pool of applicants to the host site, who will also review the applications and see if they want to reach out for that second interview. And I often will send the candidates the VISTA assignment description and the position description, just so that they do have those materials on hand that will give them more specifics on the job, because the AmeriCorps website has character limitations on how much information you can put in. So definitely having the other two pieces on hand gives them a good sense of what the project looks like. Okay, so for local recruitment, I think both Linnea and I were going to speak on this a little bit, but yeah, Linnea, can I turn it back over to you real quick?
Sure. So does anyone have any questions up to this point, or I'm going to kind of hold them off till the end? If something's...
I heard you say that they can have a second job, but can they be a full-time student and VISTA at the same time?
They can try.
They can try. Yeah.
Yes,
There's no rules about it per se.
There is not. In the past, there was a rule that they could not be. Actually, you could not even be in school and do VISTA at the same time. But now both that and the working, the extra work or the second job, are both possibilities.
Okay.
However, I will say that we've never had anyone have a full-time VISTA position and have much of a second job. In fact, I don't know anyone, unless it's something that doesn't necessarily get reported through us, which I might encourage. I mean, some people do babysitting and dog walking and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
which not,
sure.
Were prohibited in the past, but now are possibilities. But I would say, that working a full 40-hour work week and being a full-time student is tough. We do have a couple members this year who are taking some classes, not necessarily a full load, and doing VISTA programming. So
okay.
hmm So that is possible. But again, with your permission, and this has to be passed through the supervisor, also through Washington Campus Compact, and the state office has to know that as well. And I think the most important thing to remember there is that the first commitment is to the VISTA program.
Mm-hmm.
So one has to understand that if things get tough, the VISTA program is the one that you're expected to maintain.
Okay.
So, so that so just being really upfront and right away with that. So, what we want to think about when you start thinking about your recruitment locally is, who is your ideal VISTA candidate? So, take some time and really, I know that you've all gone through the position description, but really think about, kind of fleshing that out a little bit so that you really are fully aware of what the skills and knowledge and abilities are needed to do the project that you have set up for this VISTA member. I think the biggest downfall, one of them, is the living allowance. I guess pitfalls again for VISTA members. One is the challenge of living on that meager living allowance. That's where we lose folks. And then the second one is not having a full understanding of what the expectations are. Because they haven't been communicated and understood by both parties. So right up front, that's the important thing. It doesn't really work as well to come in later and, okay, well, this is what we were thinking, but this is what we're going to have you do. Now, having said that, when we create these projects, oftentimes, they're not fully developed yet, and that's one of the reasons we need a VISTA member. So we're definitely, and VISTA members understand this after, especially after orientation, that we need to be flexible. We have to be willing to see what works in a project. Sometimes things work, sometimes they don't work, and we have to make changes. And so being flexible, but also not throwing something completely new so the members feeling like they're thrown under the bus. So what are the skills, knowledge, and abilities that you're looking for? What, for example, and who could, and recognizing those, what is your target audience? So is it current student leaders, folks that that are in other community-based organizations in your community? You can use different VISTA pools that might be available. Folks that have been, like for Spokane, there's quite a few VISTA members in Spokane. Reaching out to some of those organizations or tapping into other directors in the community or associate directors with, the Office of Civic Engagement. What do they do? Lots of times in Spokane, folks kind of share opportunities, share the skills that they're looking for, because somebody might come to Spokane Falls and they don't necessarily have the skills that they have a career navigator program, and so maybe the person doesn't have those skills, but they've been working with a food bank for 2 years and they want to do VISTA. So that then, Danny, who is the director over there, might send somebody over to Eastern. So sharing that is really great, what you're looking for. And then if you do have, and either of you, well, Jessica, you have had a couple VISTA members in your office at WSU, and which were VISTA members and now work in the center.
Yes.
So we have a great pipeline there. You all have. But
exactly.
Really getting input from current VISTA members. They've been, especially if it's not a first-year project, but even if it is, what would they tell, an incoming VISTA member? What skills were really important to them? Because a lot of these, even though the projects are somewhat different, they share certain aspects. We're all working on capacity building. We're all developing community partnerships and relationships. We're all recruiting volunteers at some point to work on projects. So there's a lot of shared duties and responsibilities that that VISTA alum can really give some input on. So I think that's one of the things is to begin with is really clarifying and making sure you're really crystal clear on what you're looking for. One other piece that I would add to that is that we do know that most of our applicants are, the majority anyway, are either just graduates from an undergrad and are kind of looking, not sure which direction that they're going in, want to try a few things out, or they definitely know they're going to graduate school, but they want a year to work on things, they want to get some more experience, or they maybe haven't even finished their master's degree. So, but normally our range is a little bit younger. I would say about 22 to 26 is where we are, and a lot of times people want their candidates or their members to have grant writing experience. Fundraising, the big thing is needing funds to help sustain that project later on down the road, but it's not very common that someone has grant writing experience when they're just out of college. So having said that, that doesn't, they may be interested in grant writing, and so looking at their potential for grant writing, do they have good communication skills? How does their cover letter look? Can they write? Talk to them about those kinds of things. If that's what they're interested in, then they have great potential. They may not have experience, but that's where you as a coach can come in and really help them to learn those skills that then benefit your program or project. So those are a few things that you really want to keep in mind as you're looking for your candidate. Denise, did you want to talk about diversity and inclusion?
Sure. So one thing that I think we've changed a little bit from this year, well, we added it basically, was just being more intentional about recruiting and making sure that we are expressing that we are a national service, our national service programs are looking for candidates who are diverse, and making sure that our programs are inclusive and equitable as well. And so really making sure that that is kind of there throughout the process. So we've added that diversity statement into the My AmeriCorps listings. It has been on our website, in the past, and it still is. So we're just kind of reviewing some of that terminology and making sure that it is a very, we are recruiting for people of color, for LGBTQ individuals, persons with disabilities, and veterans, and making sure that really that there is that commitment to diversity in our teams. And then also making sure that the application process also reflects that search for diversity as well, making sure that we have a question now where we're kind of asking for people to talk about their experiences with diversity and working with diverse communities. And so just trying to be more intentional, more mindful about that. Definitely reaching out to student groups on campus who have clubs and groups and leadership teams that are centered around diversity and equity and inclusion, and going talking to those students, reaching out. There's certain service clubs that are focused in different sort of identity groups as well, and so it's just being able to have a broad net so we can recruit for a very, a great diverse team with lots of great experience and can bring lots of different things to the team and to the table as well in their programs. And also, just utilizing, again, all the different resources on campus that Linnea spoke to, the students and the faculty and staff and any other networks that the departments may be part of as well. And then, again, reviewing for potential, not perfection. That is something that I think is very much, part of this VISTA recruitment process. Is that often find these candidates are looking for more experience. They're looking to broaden the experiences they have. They're looking to try out different career paths. When I got into VISTA, I thought I really wanted to be a grant writer and be a development associate. And then I realized how much you have to network and talk to people and not just sit behind us and write. And I said, I don't know if that's for me, actually. So definitely just having that experience is very much what they're going to be getting out of their VISTA year. So really kind of seeing how that their current skills are going to be able to fit into your project and help you and also help them, I think is very key. We are a little bit short on time, so I think I'm going to kind of skip ahead. We've talked about some of these avenues for outreach, but I can also get this slideshow out to everyone too, so there'll be those links ahead on hand. So I think the last kind of main point that I wanted to talk about, and Linnea can also speak on this too, if there's any additional information before we go to any questions that you guys might have. For the as far as the host site interview process goes, so I guess once I forward on, I think qualified candidates that I think are a good fit for the program, the interview process kind of gets taken over from the site at that point. It's really just some campuses have to go through their HR department. Some campuses it's just a supervisor who does the interview process. It does vary from site to site. So at that point, kind of just whatever that process is in place or one that's being worked on, that's when you're going to take over at that point with the candidates. As we said, with very well qualified candidates, they're applying to multiple VISTA positions. They're hearing back from multiple VISTA positions as well. So even just reaching out to kind of establish a contact with them, just calling up to say hi, introducing yourself, and you can learn a lot just from that very initial conversation. And then at that point, it may be you can schedule an interview down the line if you're needing to have more time to gather together interview dates or an interview panel, whatever the case may be on the campus. So just kind of having initial point of contact, engaging and retaining great candidates, that's definitely something that we do on our end, and also the host sites as well. And
I would just add to that maybe like a couple ways that you can kind of engage them right away is you can send them just even an email and say, thank you very much for your application. I'm wondering if you would also kind of submit a cover letter and a resume. So they know you're interested. You keep them on the hook, so do you have some time to schedule interviews? Look at your schedule. If there's any time, if you're going to be out of the office, that you kind of hold on to them. You can send them links to send them a link to what's happening in Cheney. National parks, people are really interested in learning a little bit more about the place, and they will react to the first person that often is giving them information, because they're like, oh, okay, they're interested. I'm going to keep going with this. And the other piece with that is there is, again, other work that you can do before you have the interview, and one of those things is to go ahead and check their references, because the references have to be checked before we can get them into. So they show up on the system, and then they have to be approved by us in the system. And before we can approve them, you need to let us know that you've spoken to the reference. So that's another way to kind of get some of this done, sort of, preloading it. So as we get closer and closer to that deadline, we have that stuff done. It also actually gives you an opportunity to formulate some questions if you have spoken to their references around some things that their references may have said. So those little things really help to keep folks interested. So they don't start wandering right away. And it's very, very, very competitive. For those candidates that really are qualified, they pick and choose.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think another way to engage candidates is if you have connections to current VISTA members, connecting them to the candidates and having the VISTA members talk about what their experience has been like, what they've done, what they are going to be doing in the future, and any tips they might have just about the whole experience as well. That's actually a question I get a lot when I'm doing my screening interviews is, after I introduce myself and talk about, my VISTA experience, people usually will ask about that and sort of what my experience was like as a member and also as a leader, and they just want to know more about what it's like on the other side, I guess, and getting just to kind of get a better sense of what they're going to be getting into for the next year, definitely. So being able to talk with someone who has that direct experience is a really great way to retain candidates too. And so, yeah, as far as, what the interview is like, that's definitely also based just on the site. Talking with candidates about certain experiences you want them to have, different backgrounds, common questions that they usually ask me, and then I kind of direct them to the supervisors is, which is, again, about the daily work, where they're coming into the project as well, how much groundwork has been laid, how much institutional support is there on campus, just so they kind of have a good sense of where they're coming into the project, definitely. What other professional development opportunities there are on campus, like what connections the office or the department has to different other campuses or different other offices on campus, and seeing, I guess, how they can expand their skills when they're at that project, and what kind of if they're trying to choose between maybe different projects, a campus that can, or a site that can offer, being able to be a part of a conference and being able to present at a conference. That's a huge, skill or experience that they can now put on their resume and be able to show that off to future job opportunities. So things like that are definitely, what people are looking for and asking about during the interview process as well. And so I guess after kind of the pool of applicants has been looked at and some folks have been talked to, and you're coming down to one or two really great candidates, you can offer the position whenever you feel comfortable doing so, after the references have been checked, after all the paperwork has been completed, and the round of interviews has been done. The position can be offered, and at that point you would just want to let either myself or Linnea or both of us know that an offer has been extended, and if it's been accepted, that's kind of when it comes back to us, and then I would usually walk the applicant through the process and the portal that they have to select a few different options in their account to be able to actually be officially accepted in the system. So at that point, that's when we do that for candidates who accept the position. And also, I mean, it's also good just to have a backup candidate in case something doesn't work out. Sometimes candidates will have an offer extended to them, and they ask for the weekend to think about it. And maybe that's when you're thinking, oh, well, they might have another position they're trying to decide between. Maybe they're kind of waiting to hear back from someone else about an offer, about a position. So having that sort of open communication is really key, being able to talk with them. Sometimes I'll contact the candidate just saying, hey, if you have, any questions, or if there's sort of any maybe, lingering concerns or anything that you might be thinking about, definitely we can have that conversation, and I can help you kind of walk through the decision-making process. I've been able to do that a few times, so I'm happy always to step in and help out when that's needed. And then hopefully, at the point of acceptance, they are able to just stay engaged and be able, if they're relocating, look for housing at that point, and kind of look forward to their transition over to the host site. Is there anything you'd add to that, Linnea?
No, I think you covered it.
Okay. And I guess to the last point, if there are candidates who are local and who have been kind of internal this whole time and have really just been you've been talking with them after reading a cover letter or resume, at some point they do need to submit an application through the AmeriCorps portal, because that is the only way that they can get officially into the system and get officially approved and selected and placed by the state office. So it's good for that. So they would need to be able to submit an application, and it's also just recommended that they speak to me at some point, just to make sure that they have all the information about VISTA and about the living allowance and any other questions they might have about the education award or any other kind of VISTA specific benefits. I'm able to answer all those questions. Okay, and then here we have just resources that may be helpful during the recruitment process. So the first one is the I've sent, and then some of these I've sent out, I think, to supervisors, sort of in that initial recruitment email. So our recruitment process goes over just that local and national, parallel process that we have from outreach all the way down to selection. And then at the VISTA campus, if you haven't signed up yet for a supervisor account, they have a lot of resources there for site supervisors. There's webinars, there's handouts, planning forums. There's also a supervisor forum that I don't know if it's very active or not because I'm not allowed in. I'm not a supervisor, but definitely there just are a lot of resources on the VISTA campus. And I think it's a great place to just start if you don't know quite where to start yet, or if you need just maybe a few more resources. I've pulled a lot of information for this PowerPoint actually from the VISTA campus. The webinar I included on there was the one that has the information about the demographics, and then there are just a few more handouts about sample interview questions and other effective practices. Yeah. So at this point, any additional questions, we are happy to answer them.
I do not have any other questions.
I don't either.
We answered all your questions?
Yes.
Very helpful.
Very thorough. Well, I would also like to say, if anything pops into your head, both Denise and I are here. Not only to answer your questions right now, but throughout this process. And I think, while this was very thorough and detailed, there's always many exceptions to all the rules. And I think once that you kind of get into it and see it happening, it's really quite straightforward. The other thing that I would like to say is that all VISTA members in general are really highly motivated, and I think our team is that they're just they're just focused. They're focused. They want to do well. They want to have a very successful year. They come into this with the idea that they really want to have that transformative experience. So they're excited, and they have most of them have kind of A personalities. They're very organized, and they're very active, and they're proactive. So and that's what we screen for. So we do have a really qualified candidate pool. When Denise sends you folks, they've already been vetted through her many filters, and she has a great conversations with them about her experience and what their expectations can and should be, as well as she knows from your side. So we work really hard to help you guys make those really good matches. So we're here. We're here, like I say, throughout the whole recruitment process, as well as this exciting next year. And thank you.